All right, everybody. Hey, let's jump right into the Northwest Ordinance. I think it's one of the founding documents that many times can be a little bit overlooked compared to some other documents that we talk about, like the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. But it's significant for a number of reasons and is also going to be something that will be included on our state exam, our state test that we'll be taking at the end of the year. So it's important that we know something about it. But the Northwest Territory was received as part of the Treaty of Paris that ended the Revolutionary War. And as you can see in the map here, you can see roughly where the territory lay right here. And of course, the states that ultimately were formed out of what was then called the Northwest Territory in 1787. So the Northwest Ordinance basically provided the basis for temporary government of the Northwest Territory and eventually entry of these states into the United States. So let's get into some of the major ideas and the key features of the ordinance, because the Northwest Ordinance established precedents, okay? And that's a key word, guys, precedents. Precedents is something you do now that allows you to do something in the future. It's something you do now that allows you to take similar actions in similar events in the future, okay? So very, very significant. Look at some of these precedents that the Northwest Ordinance established. Public education. Public education, guys. Schools and the means of education to be encouraged, okay? The second one, the establishment of civil liberties, religious liberty. I think you've heard of that concept before. Right to trial by jury. I think we've heard of that concept before. Writ of habeas corpus. Of course, some of you might be thinking, what in the world is writ of habeas corpus? Well, actually, again, I looked that up, and I'm just going to read the definition right here. It says, writ of habeas corpus is a court order to bring a person who's been detained to court to determine whether or not their detention is valid. Basically, it's a safeguard from the government imprisoning people without cause. That's writ of habeas corpus. So, number three, everybody. Number three, the prohibition of slavery. Yes, in the Northwest Territory, slavery was forbidden. Later, it is included in the Constitution as the 13th Amendment. Of course, you know, Northwest Ordinance, 1787, slavery still existed, right? It doesn't end until after the Civil War, 1865. But this set a precedent that north of the Ohio River, Northwest Territory, you're not going to have slavery, okay? And the last point here is state governments were to be Republican in structure. Republican meaning representative. And of course, that provision was repeated in the U.S. Constitution. So again, remember, you know, when this was enacted, the Northwest Ordinance, 1787, this was before the Constitution. This was still under the Articles of Confederation, okay? The government at this time that enacted this ordinance was under the Articles of Confederation, which existed roughly from 1781 to 1789. So this is pre-Constitution. So very interesting how many of these ideas, if you look at this PowerPoint slide, many of these ideas here were then later included in our current Constitution. So let me show you a couple more things here. Well, there's a transcript. I'll come back to that. Here's a summary, guys. I thought this was really good. And again, I've included both a summary of the Northwest Ordinance and the actual transcript of the Northwest Ordinance in the course. But let me just read a couple things real briefly here I wanted to go over. It says the Northwest Ordinance of 1787. I'll look at the second paragraph right here. I'll just read this a little bit here. It says, it was the most important piece of legislation enacted by Congress under the Articles of Confederation. Some historians have claimed that the principles established in the Northwest Ordinance are so important that they actually formed part of the Constitution. And I think you would probably have to agree with that when you look at the Constitution and some of the features of it. Some of the things are in this ordinance here. It says, before the Constitution, the Northwest Ordinance promised a Republican form of government for the territories. It guaranteed that residents in the territories would not be treated as second-class citizens, and they would enter under the same terms as those states that were already part of the Union. The Northwest Ordinance also ensured the equality of rights of citizens of the new states with the rights of citizens in the states that had been fought or that had fought for the Revolution. So in other words, when new states were formed, those new states were going to be treated in the same manner and the same equal status as the previous states. And people were going to be given the same equality of rights. There wasn't going to be any difference. So let me just skim ahead here, guys. And again, I've posted this in the course folder. Really, really nice summary of the Northwest Ordinance. And I'm not going to go through all this for sake of time. I'm just going to kind of skim through. But there's a very, very significant feature here, guys. Section 14. I thought this was really, really interesting here. Section 14, and then Articles 1 through 6. Check this out, you guys, and what this says. It says, Section 14, perpetual binding consent. Okay. Article 1, guys, Section 14, Northwest Ordinance says freedom of religion. It guarantees freedom of religion. I think we've heard of that before somewhere, right? I think maybe Bill of Rights, maybe First Amendment concept. Article 2, habeas corpus. There it is again, guys. Trial by jury, writ of habeas corpus. So you can't be imprisoned without warrant. Article 3, guys, religion, morality, and knowledge being necessary to good government and the happiness of mankind, ... schools established. So it establishes the fact that we are going to have public education. Article number 4. Wow, check this one out, you guys. Once a state, always a state, no secession. If you fast forward, into the 1860s, guess what? Civil War, right? The South secedes from the Union, right? Right here, Article 4, not supposed to do that, no secession, according to the ordinance here. Article 5 talks about, I'll summarize this, 3 to 5 states apparently were to be formed from the Northwest territories, and you had to have a certain number of people there to form a state and so forth. And then Article 6 is a really big one. No slavery or involuntary servitude in the territory. So basically, yeah, like north of the Ohio River was like the border there. North of that was going to be non-slave states. And of course, we know as we get closer to the Civil War, there's going to be a conflict there, right, between North and South. So, but yeah, a lot of interesting ideas in the Northwest Ordinance. Let me just show you one more thing here. Again, I won't take time to read all this, guys. I have posted this in the course folder. It is the actual transcript of the Northwest Ordinance. So again, this is a primary source document, right? Primary source document. And look, I would encourage you to read through it. It can be a little bit difficult at times. And I'm not going to take the time right now to go through that, but I do want to show you in the summary it talked about Article 14 and then, the various sections within Section 14, the various articles, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There they are, guys. There they are. They talk about how freedom of religion. Number 2 talks about writ of habeas corpus. Number 3 talks about means of education. 4, of course, talks about no secession, right? Talks about in here how you can't secede from the Union. Again, I'm not going to read all this. This is the actual primary source right here. Article 5 here talks about the number of states that can be admitted and the requirements to become a state. And then, of course, Article 6 talks about no slavery in that territory. So there it is, guys. There's the actual full transcript, the primary source document here that I have included in the Schoology folder. So again, hey, there it is, guys. Northwest Ordinance. Very, very interesting how a lot of those ideas in here actually made their way into the Constitution, and in many ways did set a precedent for how the country would be governed in the future. So, hey, if you're in class, you're going to see an activity in the classroom folder. We are again, we're going to do a close read of this document and take a closer look at it, because we're going to need to know some of the big key ideas and concepts here when we come to our state test next spring. If you're viewing this video and you're not in class, well, again, I would encourage you to take the time to look up the Northwest Ordinance. A lot of interesting features to it. It's really not that long, but take a look at it. And I think as you read through it, you're going to find that there are many, many ideas that are later instituted in both our Constitution and Bill of Rights. So, hey, that's it for now. I will be back later with some future videos, and I'll catch up with you then, okay? Bye.